Let's give it up for our next TED Light talk.
Hello everyone, good evening. Hope you all had a good tea and coffee and are well awake. All right, so myself Sonal Bhagriya, I'm from Delhi, works with the Economist Group and the capacity of lead product designer. And I'm just not a designer, I'm also a user researcher. So that's what we are here for. And yes, why this talk? Why we are talking about synthetic user research today? I think last yesterday, today, we have talked a lot about AI and user research. I think I've not heard too much about it, but I think that's also an area where AI is coming in, where it is getting impacted, and also I think how we could make use of it. So it's very interesting that there is a shift now, which is from user research, we are moving to synthetic user research. So let's explore. So let's figure out, let me just see in the audience, how many of you are actually a user researcher? Nice. And how many of you are product designer? I would say these hands up are also will become a researcher at some point, because we will going to merge this, because a designer without a researcher will not fulfill all the job. So when we reach to that point when we have to research, I think these are the three problems I think all my friends face. And I'll say first is limited access to users. That's true. Because I am in this industry for like 14 years, 7 years with a B2B. I've also worked with B2C. But still, I feel user access is very limited. You don't get to talk to them. If we get a budget, if we get a budget from a company and organization, still it takes lots of time. So there is budget constraints, there are time constraints. And eventually, we end up with internal biasness, which is when we don't have users, we have been asked to talk to our stakeholders. And stakeholders always have a love for their own product, the content they write in terms of Economist Group. So there's an internal biasness that we work with, and we eventually feel that that will not work. We need something else. So when AI came in, me and my colleague actually went ahead and thought maybe AI is the solution. This is the one problem, not a design problem, but not a design problem, that we went out and thought, let's find a solution to it. And when AI came in, I thought AI could actually generate an artificial user for us, which is called synthetic users. For some of you, because I've talked to a lot of people in past 2 days, it feels people were like, what is synthetic users? So I think just to come back and take a seat back, synthetic users, I will just say one word, which is fake. What is synthetic? It's a fake user. So yes, we used actually AI to generate artificial users, with which we did research, we interacted with them, and we also trained it. So that's what we did. So let's go with the process. I think the first step is the only step that I feel is the most important step. We created a bot. Everybody is well aware with the term. We created a persona bot. We call it a persona bot. So we wanted two things, how we could use it. One was there is the product knowledge. So in Economist, for example, we have a product, we know what it is used for, what all are its services, and being in this industry for so long, we know our users because we have worked on this, so we know what are our target users. So we had that product knowledge. The second item to this was AI knowledge. So we used GenAI, and we assume that GenAI has all the knowledge. So combining both the knowledges, we came up with the synthetic user. I'll go more in detail with an example at AIU. So we have a product that we work with, we work with lots of industries. We work with finance, banking, automotive, lots of industries we work with. So we knew our industries, we knew the designations we work with. Our customers are risk officer, strategy officer, analyst, researcher. So we had all these designations in place. So these were, the EIU knowledge. And the ChatGPT knowledge was, what we wanted for a persona was username, age, the right demographics, and what user responsibilities it could have. For example, maybe a chief risk officer at JP Morgan Bank So that kind of responsibility and age, ChatGPT could just generate. So ChatGPT was the tool that we used for it. And ultimately, we could create a synthetic user. I'll try and run this. Oh, yes, thank you. Thanks for the team for running this. This is one of the example shortly that we did. This was an interview bot that we created. So if you could see, I'm not sure if it's very clear, but there was a persona that was created for Alexandro Fernandez, who was head of strategy at Commercial Bank. And this is the way we were asking about, tell me about your role in your company, how your success is judged. To our surprise, there were a lot of other things that we came to know, even without putting efforts. And I think it always does with AI, that we end up knowing more than we know. So there were a lot of other insights we got into some roles that were used later for other products. So this was like how success is measured and to these things. It was also useful to know about our competitors. So with the Economist Group, I'm going back to this example because I'm too close to this. So the competitors that we have in market are Bloomberg, Reuters, Moody's. These were our competitors. So it was able to compare there and then that how, being a strategy officer, how are the other tools helping me? So, which was also insightful to do competitor analysis. And then we dig more into it. Then at last, I think we asked him that, could you rate us that there are multiple EIU services that we have, which is, if you could rate in a priority order. It was able to do that too. So what I'm trying to tell is that this is more like a training data that we were continuously feeding it and we were getting some insights. I'll move now. So with this, as you saw, this is one example that we did, that we created personas. And it used to create personas on the go. We realized the fact that there is one, limitation with it because it was creating on the go, so there was a consistency missing. So we created a whole library with it. The next step that we took was we created a library out of it, a consistent library. For example, Sarah, the sales manager. Now we have created this and it stays with us in our persona library. We have created like 160 personas now. And we could use the same person. It will not change. The responsibility does not change because we know when we use ChatGPT, the things changes. When you even put a same question again, you will get a different answer. So that was the limitation that we were addressing. And we created a consistent library now so we could use the same person to do a research, to do training with it, to write content with the editorial team, everything. So this was useful and now everybody in our company is using this. So I think, and the second step to the research is same that we do. Put a questionnaire, put a discussion guide in place, and consistently, work with different personas. Ultimately, conduct the research interview. The conversations will be easy. You will get the research, you will get the results, and then will come the analysis. So with synthetic users, I'll say it's a good term. It's a good, new initiatives. There are equal benefits. There are equal limitations. So we'll talk about the benefits. Rapid insights. Exactly. I think rapidly we were able to do, which were taking, hours and weeks. Sorry. Now we were able to do it in hours. There's low cost. We just need a ChatGPT license. And then the cost is reduced to it. Bandwidth, the utilization of resources are reduced. And we were easily able to test it and iterate it within hours and within days. Next comes some limitations of it. Definitely, I think with new technology, we have been hearing a lot about AI, so definitely there are limitations that goes with it. Inherited biasness, there's biasness in this as well. Because we are putting a training data into it. We are giving them a data that will also have its own biasness, so just we need to be very mindful while using it. And it lacks a user, as a sentiment of a user. So when we do user research, we conduct those interviews. There are emotional depth to it when we are talking to a person. There is a live experience that is missing. So that is actually missing when we are actually talking to a bot. I think you all will agree with it. And then obviously, we know and we don't know, but there are some spots that we might miss because it just feels that we are going very straight with it, what we'd want. Because these are bots and they will just answer to your point and they will not just go here and there. So we might just miss on something, very useful. So these are the limitations we go ahead with. So what we need a balance. We need to balance that when to use them and when not to use them. So I would say when we use the synthetic users, we should be very we should be very careful about when are we using. You need to use it for rapid, scalable, and low-cost exploration, which could be, maybe the starting point of what you're thinking, what are you ideating. Maybe that could be the starting point of using it. But maybe avoid it for very deep qualitative analysis. So that will help us to not get into a black hole. So I would reiterate and say that the synthetic users aren't a replacement for humans. We are just, giving a powerful complement to it. That's the statement that I come with, that we are just using the AI to enhance the user research rather than just replacing it with actual user research. Then comes, I think we have talked about this in other talks as well, that we have some ethical pillars of responsible AI. We have to use the AI very responsibly. So according to me, there are 4 pillars: transparency, human first, empathy, and humility. I know I'm running out of time. I'll just go a little fast. So transparency, we need to be very clear what is synthetic, what is real, to our stakeholders, to our internal teams, to our users, all clients, that this is derived from, our synthetic research, this is derived from an actual real user's interventions. So what we could do is we could include it in our methodologies, that what percentage of user research is happening synthetically and what we are doing with the real users. We could have all the documentation in place so that whenever somebody comes back, they should know that what is coming from where. So we need to be really transparent. Human first, we are using this as a starting point, but I think we need to have humans in place. I think I'm vouching for synthetic user research, but again, I would say I'm not saying that we have to replace that. We are not replacing humans, guys. We have to go with them. Humans are the key. We are working for them. We are making the products for them. So those are the real people. We should keep a human always in loop to work on these decisions, on design decisions that we take. So that will always be the key. Empathy. Empathy is the word that we always relate to. Design with empathy. Still, I would say when we are using AI, still we need to hold on to that empathy, that because ultimately we are again designing for users. So we need to have, we need to see the biasness that we're getting. We need to work towards this, mitigate all the risks. And at the same point, we need to do some real-world interviews. So if you're doing some synthetic user research and we are getting some insights out of 12 or 20 hypotheses that you did, you might just cut down on like 10 and then maybe just really validate it with the user. But I think that's what I'm saying, that we need empathy and humility, that we should acknowledge that we have limitations with this technology. We need to see what we could do more with it, but keeping in mind all the limitations in place, that we could have what we could do is we could have a review process at every stage. And that just distracts me, sorry. But yes, a review process in place, and we should validate all the AI findings. All right, so I would say keep in mind these ethical pillars for it. It will really help us to accelerate our insights, mitigate all the risk, and we will be able to create a better product for all the user needs. I think I'm going to summarize now that the future of UX research is blended. We need to have AI plus human insights into it. We will have faster discovery, we'll make smarter decisions with the data that we get, and designers will become strategists. We'll no longer be called designers. I think we heard it yesterday also. We'll not be just designers. We are going into strategy, or creating those things. So strategists will be there. We will all be strategists in our companies. And if you become a strategist, I think we'll need to adapt to the change. And that's the need of the hour, that we need that change. And if we accept that we have to change with our roles and responsibilities, that will also be there. These are the 4 takeaways. I think I'll repeat myself, but yes, UX research without your direct user access is possible, but we need to be mindful, we need to be thoughtful what we are going with. There will be speed. You will get the results very fast, but then again, we'll lack the emotional depth of it. There will be we are not having users in place, so there will be something that we are missing. So we need to be mindful. Then use AI as guide. I think in last year, I'm not sure how many of you were there, but we had Kate from LNG, and she said use AI as an intern. So I think on the same lines, AI is just a guide. It's an intern. Just make use of it, and then as we train them, it's more like how we train. So it's like a guide that we could use. And the future is blended. We'll have AI, we'll have humans. We will be there to work with this. That's it, guys. That's me, and thank you so much for being the audience. Let's connect. Kindly, please share the feedback. I'll be very happy. I've been known to take critiques very well in my office, so please do so. And yes, it's my first conference that I've been a speaker to, so please kindly share the feedback. Thank you so much.